Virtual reality is one of the greatest things to happen to video games in recent history, especially with how it enhances already established games. At least that's my opinion, because I've been playing VR games for a good long while now with mixed reality, PlayStation VR, and up until recently, the Oculus Quest 2, both portable and connected with Oculus Link, and it's been magical. It's honestly been really amazing experiences, and I feel like I am nowhere near done exploring it. People that say that VR is a fad still today, like some trendy thing that's gonna go away soon, they could not be more wrong. I think there is so much great stuff to get into, and we are just barely getting started. I still feel like when it comes to VR, we still have an enormity of improvements that we can have. Long gone are the days where VR was only something you would see in science fiction movies or cartoons. It's real now, and it's pretty good. Sure, it's a little pricey, and we still have a long way to go in terms of hardware and people losing the fear of making bigger and more legit games for VR as opposed to small little demos or proofs of concepts. However, that doesn't mean that we still haven't made a ton of progress, to the point that some games that I loved before, they now have VR versions that pull me back in all over again. And VR headsets are getting a little cheaper now, so it is more accessible for people to get into it. But anyway, focusing more on the games part of it, I think the best way to get people into virtual reality is to take games that people already know are good and give them VR modes. Games that were already pretty immersive to begin with are like doubly as immersive when you have a virtual reality headset for you to work with. And there have been a bunch of games that I've played that have gotten VR updates or like separate versions of the same game, but fully dedicated to virtual reality. So I compiled this little list of 10 games that I really like a lot, that I like even more now with virtual reality in mind, to the point that the VR version is pretty much the one definitive way that I play these games now. Now, my criteria for this list is only one thing, and that is that the entirety of the game is playable on either flat screen, normal mode, or in VR. Getting the option of both, but I can play the entirety of the game, beginning to end, in VR. No separate mode for it, no little demo or anything like that. The whole thing is in VR. And of course, all of the games listed here are in no particular order. All 10 of these games are awesome. So if you're new to VR and you're looking for some cool games to play, then I will echo the words of Sandy from Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3 and say, I recommend everything that I'm about to talk about. So here we go. Game number 1, Thumper. This was one of the first quote-unquote good VR games to come out because it's like a fully realized product. At the time, we didn't have a whole lot, just a bunch of demos and proof of concept for what a legit VR game would look like. There weren't many people willing to go all the way and make a full game in VR, but Thumper was one of the first, and it delivers immensely. For those of you not in the know, Thumper is a rhythm game, but not in the usual sense. It's not like a Rock Band or a Muse Dash. There's only one track and a bunch of special moves that you have to learn in order to overcome a bunch of obstacles that are coming your way. All of it accompanied by intense percussion-based tracks that create less vibing and more anxious and nervousness the longer the levels go on, especially during a boss battle where the big evil giant face looks huge and scary. Even the angry moon from Majora's Mask would feel intimidated. It's a very simple concept, but the game is super fun to play and tough to master because the levels do get crazy hard after a while. Of course, you can play this on both TV mode and VR mode. I prefer the VR mode for more reasons than just, it's immersive, man. There are more legitimate reasons for why I like it in VR, and that's that I'm actually decent at playing it this way. When I play it on a flat screen, it's very difficult for me to see clearly where I'm going. I screw up so many times that I get frustrated and I can't get far in the level. But in VR, the difference is like night and day. I can see what's actually coming up further ahead. I can turn my own head to properly see where I'm going. The track doesn't feel anywhere near as fast or overwhelming to me, so the levels are easier for me to handle. And of course, because you are actually inside the game, every single obstacle, every sound, movement, and scary boss face feels larger than life and far more impactful than playing it on a normal TV, where all the action is sort of blocked off. I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's very difficult for me to see anything. But in VR, it is all encompassing. It is so much easier for you to kind of get a good grip of what's coming up and what to do. I wouldn't recommend playing this if you're a newcomer because honestly, the game gets super intense and stressful with how fast and difficult it can get. And I still see these monster faces in my nightmares. But if you're a VR fan and you're used to not getting motion sick and you want a cool challenge, then this game is it. Game number 2, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim VR. Quite possibly one of the best VR games you can get right now. Something that I've wanted and many others wanted too is for developers to stop being scared of VR. Stop playing it safe with tiny 10-minute long games or making a shooting gallery for the millionth time. Give us something juicy, a bigger kind of game that we can dump a ton of hours into. Bethesda was one of the few that listened by, ironically, playing it safe, by porting yet another version of Skyrim. But hey, whatever excuse they can get to port Skyrim on a new platform, god damn it, they'll take it. So now we have Skyrim VR. If you've played that game before, then you know what it's all about, so I'm not gonna waste your time explaining what it is. It's the exact same game that we all know and love, but now entirely in VR, and with all of the DLC included as well. For someone like me that put a ton of hours on Skyrim on PS3 and never actually bought any of the DLC, then for me, there's a whole bunch of new content to get into with all of the new DLC expansions included. You can use the motion controls to use your hands for magic spells, you can swing your sword and pull your bow to shoot arrows, which is the coolest feeling in the world, by the way. Now, despite how nice it is to use these controls, it might not be your cup of tea, or maybe on that particular day you don't feel like using your arms a whole lot. Well, worry not, because you can just use a regular controller, whether that's a DualShock 4 or an Xbox controller or what have you, and you can very comfortably play Skyrim without waving your arms around if you don't want to. Speaking of cool and comfortable, taking this world that we have all explored extensively and add VR to it totally changes the way that you look at Skyrim. It feels like an entirely new game, and it simply hits different, you know? Like watching porn on a PSP. It's just not the same feeling as a normal computer. I enjoyed so much to the point that this is the only way I play Skyrim now. I can't remember the last time I played regular Skyrim on a flat screen TV, because every time I want to play, I always feel like there's something missing, like it's not as cool as it could be, it's not as immersive or all-encompassing. And then I played in VR, and yes, my thirst is quenched. The enemies are larger, especially the dragons. Traps are actually scary, the combat is more fun, and exploring is far more intriguing than ever before. Now, my favorite version of the game is on PlayStation VR, mostly because the build of the headset and playing with a DualShock 4 is super comfortable for me. But playing it on PC is a whole different world because mods. Regular Skyrim is already a goldmine of cool mods, and the VR version is no exception. There's a ton of stuff that you can download, which will add more hours you'll spend playing this game. It's great value, and it's still the same awesome Skyrim as ever. If you don't have a lot of money and you just want to spend your cash on one game that'll give you a ton of content, then I think Skyrim is one of the best investments out there. One, because the modding is awesome, and second is because you can explore Skyrim all over again through a whole new perspective that honestly makes all of the difference in the world. Game number 3, REZ Infinite. Ranking on my personal list of greatest games ever made ever, and on top of that being a really good VR game, REZ is a pretty old game actually that doesn't feel old at all. It started as a Dreamcast game if memory serves, and then an Xbox 360 remaster, and now a PlayStation 4 VR game. Probably the best VR game that the PS4 had during its early days of VR being a new thing. This is the definitive and ultimate form to play REZ because you have all of these super trippy visuals where you're this little guy that transforms as you go along, shooting all of these things. It's an on-rail shooter, by the way. You're not really moving on your own, you're kind of just going on a track, but you're shooting all of these guys by aiming with your head and using the DualShock 4 to shoot a bunch of stuff. Now, you can use the motion controllers for PS4, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's a little awkward. I would just go for DualShock 4. But yeah, the game is pretty short. You can beat the whole thing in about an hour, but I've always wanted to replay it many times because just the colors of it, the music, the enemy designs, how incredibly fun it is to just shoot stuff and face against all the bosses and stuff. I had never really played the original Dreamcast game, but I have played it on flat screen TVs before, and it always looked really cool, but just playing it in VR, it's a whole different experience. It is so much more fun. It actually integrates all 360 degrees of movement instead of just what's in front of you. You can turn around, look behind you and stuff. It is just so much better. And don't even get me started on Area X. That is an awesome and sadly very short-lived thing all on its own. I really wish that if they ever make a REZ 2, they would just do what they did on Area X, but just expand on it. I played through the whole thing like 100 times, and I am more than happy to play it 100 times more. If you've played REZ before and you think you know it, you don't know it like this. And speaking of REZ and the guy that made it, game number 4 is the Tetris Effect. The same guy behind REZ Infinite and Lumines was like, hey, I'm not done being awesome yet. Let's take Tetris and Lumines and have them do the fusion dance from Dragon Ball Z and just turn it into one thing. Tetris, but it's trippy and colorful and visually pleasing with great music, and just put it in VR and oh, and by the way, add a multiplayer mode as well. It just, oof. This game is just so good. It's very simple. It doesn't have a ton of modes. It has like this campaign, and then it has these challenges that let you play normal Tetris or chill Tetris or infinite Tetris, and you can choose all of these different worlds that you can be in. And just like Lumines, whenever you move around, it reacts to the music. You can contribute to the sound of it. Every time you get rid of a line, the level reacts accordingly. It is such a fantastic thing to play in VR. Now, don't get me wrong, if you play it on a flat screen TV in 4K or whatever, that's also cool. But gosh, in VR, there really is nothing like it. Kind of like Skyrim, I don't really have to explain what this is. It's literally Tetris, but with all of these amazing new things made surrounding it. Like the beautiful visuals and the way that you transition whenever you're done taking care of a certain amount of lines. You just take a portal somewhere else and it can look totally different. The sounds are different. The design of the Tetris blocks are really different. It is visually pleasing to the max. I was already a pretty big Luminous fan back in the day, and I still love Luminous now. But I always find it kind of frustrating when other people that didn't know Luminous would see footage of the game and be like, oh, is that like Tetris? Which is a very normie thing to do, right? Literally any puzzle game that has blocks in it going from top to bottom is always like, oh, it's Tetris. So now you can play a game that you enjoy made by the same guy that is actually Tetris. And it's great, especially when you play all of those challenge levels where they try to do a bunch of different things like reversing the controls, having you play upside down and all that stuff. It's crazy, it's crazy. Playing it on a normal screen is fine. I do enjoy it that way too, but just putting that headset on, it just makes a big difference. It's really not the same thing. It's awesome. And now moving on to game number 5 is Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. The game that practically saved Resident Evil's reputation is also a fantastic VR game. I remember before this game came out, everybody was really down on Resident Evil. Hardcore fans weren't really big on Resident Evil 5, and definitely not Resident Evil 6. I kind of like those games, but then again, I'm not a hardcore fan. And then there were some other spin-off games that came and went, but overall, people weren't super optimistic. This was also the time where PT got really popular, and so when we were seeing trailers and demos for Resident Evil 7 and seeing that it felt very PT-like, everybody was being very cynical, saying that it was just a blatant copy and that it wasn't going to be good and all that. But then the game came out, and now everybody loves Resident Evil again, to the point that everybody is losing their minds over Resident Evil 8 now. And the story for Resident Evil 7 is fairly simple. You're a guy who's looking for his girlfriend that is in this weird, creepy house with a bunch of other crazy people that seem to be regenerating like Cell from Dragon Ball Z somehow. And then you're trapped in there and you gotta get out. There are some scary elements to it, and I even played it on stream recently, and it was super fun in VR. And of course, just like any horror game, I mean, you can play it on a flat screen and get super invested in it, but playing it in VR, oh yeah, that can make the difference between wanting to play it or not play it at all, depending on how scary it might be. Luckily, Resident Evil 7 isn't that scary. There's a lot of action scenes in there and a lot more suspense than there is fear. So it's actually kind of exciting to go through the house, explore everything, gather items, get guns, fight stuff, solve puzzles. It really is a whole fully fledged product, you know? It's not a small little thing, it's not a demo, it's not a 10-minute thing. Literally the entirety of Resident Evil 7, including all of the DLC things that were added in later, all of those are playable in VR as well, and they're all super duper fun. And this is coming from me, a guy that doesn't really like horror games all that much, but I loved Resident Evil 7, man, it's so good. And it is very clear that from the very beginning they went into it wanting you to play it with VR in mind as opposed to a flat screen TV. Yes, that does even include those floating hands that look really weird, but still. They made the game in first person for a reason, right? And one of them is the possibility of being able to put a headset on your head and enjoy it in a whole new way. And I'm just hoping that with Resident Evil 8, knowing that that's also in first person, that maybe they'll add a virtual reality support to that too. I'm crossing my fingers for that, I really am. Resident Evil 7 was so amazing in VR that it'd be a waste if this newer game wasn't in VR too. Hell, maybe they can even go with older games like Resident Evil 4 and put that in VR. I'd be down for that. And yeah, the explanation for why this game is better in VR than in just a regular flat screen TV. Is pretty much what I said before. You know, for any horror game ever, the scary stuff is like a million times more scary when it's in VR. So yeah, if you really want to get yourself a scare, you want to play a good ass Resident Evil game and, you know, really feel the impact of horror games doing their thing, then yes, I would recommend this in VR. Game number 6 is Polybius. Based on the legendary arcade cabinet that people debate on whether it actually even existed or not, there's an actual legit Polybius game out there that practically came out of nowhere. It's an arcade-style shooter with its philosophy being the following: how much visual stimulation should we have in this game? And the answer is yes. The game's visuals are so crazy that the game gives you some super thorough warnings about epilepsy and seizures and making absolutely sure that you read them before you even play. You gotta go through both warnings, and they won't even let you get out until like a minute passes. They really want to make sure that if you get a seizure or something that playing this, that they're not responsible for it. And I get it with the warnings, man. I mean, look at this game. There's like rainbow colors everywhere. There's stuff flying everywhere. And yeah, you're there moving around upside down and to the side and going through tunnels or whatever. You have to be prepared. You can't just go into this not knowing anything because, my God, even for a hard VR veteran like me, I had to take a few minutes to stop playing and really make sure like, okay, I'm ready. I can go in again. This is especially so towards the end of the level, where it's always this big, massive rainbow with nothing but colors. You're about to reach the end, you're reaching all the gates, and then But of course, this wouldn't be on the list if you didn't have the option to play it on a regular TV. So in terms of motion sickness, that's definitely a lot better for you. But for me, I seriously am incapable of playing the game on a flat screen TV. Very similar to why I would rather play Thumper in VR, I'd rather play Polybius in VR because it is so much easier to see where I'm going in VR. When I play it on a flat screen TV, I can barely get through any of the gates. I'm always dying, I'm always getting hit by stuff, and I didn't even know where any of those things come from. I'm always getting so frustrated, always losing track of where I am and having so many visual things all around me. And because the screen is flat, there are things that can overlay on top of something else that you want to see, as opposed to VR where you can kind of just tilt your head and see things through more dimensions. So yeah, I can get through the game pretty damn far. I can get a lot of levels beat through VR. But I'm not even kidding when I say that on a flat screen TV, I would be very lucky if I made it past the first level. That's how bad I am on flat screen, and that's how good I am on VR. Really, really awesome game. It's very simple. It has this arcadey style kind of thing where it's all about getting a big score. And that's pretty much all there is to it. There's a couple of achievements here and there, but honestly, it's all about just having fun with the shooting and taking in all the visuals. It's a very, very nice game. I would recommend this to pretty much anybody, and if you are, you know, resistant to the visuals and the rainbows and all of those, then yeah, I recommend it in VR too if you can. Game number 7 is Borderlands 2 VR. We all know Borderlands. You're living under a rock if you don't know what it is. Seriously, I'm pretty sure there was like 3 to 4 years of my YouTube life where everything on my feed was nothing but people playing Borderlands 2. But if you are one of those few that don't know what Borderlands 2 is, then that might actually be a good thing because you can come into this game with fresh eyes and experience it all in VR. This game is very similar to Skyrim. It's a super big game that everybody already likes with all of the DLC included, and you just have a separate VR version of it. It's great! And again, just like my time with Skyrim, I already had a Borderlands 2 for a while, but I never bought any of the DLC, and I actually had a really hard time getting into it. I actually didn't really enjoy Borderlands 2 all that much, but revisiting it again with all of the DLC and with VR, it feels like a totally different thing, and is so much more fun now. I love playing this in VR. And this is also really special because you have all of these games in VR that always try to be very realistic and have amazing graphics and all that stuff, but this game looks totally different, right? It has that cel-shaded kind of look to it, and when you're getting immersed into this world, it just looks really cool to have things just look really, really different with all of your guns and stuff. Going out there, looting stuff, shooting, experimenting, and seeing what guns you like, and now through the view of a VR headset, running around, taking missions, driving. It's the same Borderlands 2 that you know, but, you know, through a different perspective. And even the cutscenes are played on like a little cinematic kind of mode, like you're watching a TV screen or something, which is fine. And there are some moments where the aiming through a scope has like 5 FPS or something for some reason, but other than that, you know, the whole game runs really, really well. I play it on PlayStation VR a lot, and honestly, it's a treat. I like it a lot. It kind of makes me want the other Borderlands game in VR as well, right? Like Borderlands 1 and pre-sequel and Borderlands 3. I think that'd be cool, but they made a really good decision in having 2 specifically be the one. So just like Skyrim, if you're looking for a game that has a lot of value for not a whole lot of money, just buy one game that can give you a lot of time with your headset, then I think Borderlands 2 is it. This is the game that turned me from a guy that didn't really like Borderlands 2 all that much to absolutely loving it. So, you know, if that convinces you of anything, then hey. Game number 8 is Minecraft. Now finally, I can make my dream reality of putting on a headset, really being within this blocky ass world and uttering the words out loud, "Babe, we're in Minecraft." But in all seriousness, wanting Minecraft in virtual reality was sort of like losing my virginity, because I thought it would never happen. I legit had dreams about playing this game in VR, like actual dreams of me being inside Minecraft. To actually be inside of Minecraft, like those cringy YouTube videos where 9-year-olds transport themselves into Minecraft land, yeah, I know that feeling now. I know how it feels like to be in Eye of the Spider. I know how it feels like to be in Stinky Steve, the book that my brother gave me for my birthday. I'm not gonna bother explaining what Minecraft is, because obviously we all know what this is, right? You build, you craft, and you fight monsters and everything. Playing it on a flat screen TV, obviously you know how it goes. Nothing is really all that intimidating after a certain while, right? With creepers and skeletons and all that stuff, or exploring caves, but it feels totally different playing it in VR. Seeing a big dark cave with no light coming out of it, just the blackness staring back at you, it definitely feels way different in virtual reality. It definitely feels so much more intimidating. It is a lot more scary when you see an arrow from a skeleton just swoosh past your head, just narrowly dodging it. You can also play this with motion controllers as well, if you want. I wouldn't recommend it. It's kind of a little finicky, and it doesn't flow as well as say, playing with a DualShock 4 on PlayStation VR, or playing it with an Xbox controller on PC via the Windows 10 edition. Yeah, for me, playing it on a controller, that's the way to go. It is far more comfortable, far more easy to use. Definitely using the motion controllers has its moments. There are definitely moments where it's really, really entertaining and fun, but eventually your arms get tired, and Minecraft is that kind of game where you just play for long stretches of time. I would recommend the motion controllers for just short little bursts, and just a regular gamepad will do more than enough. But yeah, dude, like building your own house, seeing all of the little Minecraft blocky things up close, fishing, going through minecarts, fighting enemies, farming, exploring places like the Nether and the End and killing the Ender Dragon, all of the typical Minecraft things. And of course, if you have Minecraft on PC and you're modding stuff, then that could potentially work really well too. It's just amazing. It is just so much more immersive, so much more fun. Even the Windows 10 edition and the PlayStation VR edition of Minecraft have these little VR modes where like you're sitting on a sofa and you can watch yourself play Minecraft on a little screen, or you can press a button and you're immediately just in it. And that's obviously when the fun begins, right? Doing small things like swimming, falling, dying, getting attacked, and all that stuff, it's so much more exciting because everything just feels bigger, right? It just feels to scale. I even saw this one YouTuber that said that playing Minecraft in VR has helped them sleep because the guy wasn't getting any sleep at all, and then the dude was like having so much of a good time. He was so relaxed within Minecraft that he just slept in Minecraft, and that actually helped him out a lot. So you could say it's good for your health to play Minecraft in VR? I don't know. I enjoy playing Minecraft on PC and PlayStation 4 to death on a regular flat screen TV, and PC of course because of modding and all that stuff, but I think there's a lot of merit for you to play it in virtual reality, especially when you can get texture packs and stuff, and you can even make your VR game look a little different. So yeah, I'd say give it a shot. I had a wonderful time with it. I think out of all the VR games that I've played, Minecraft is probably like my top 3 most favorite ones. Minecraft by itself was already amazing, so, you know, just knock yourself out. For me, it was a magical experience. And speaking of magical experiences, we also have game number 9, which is Wipeout Omega Collection. There's no better way to say this, man. This game is the shit. And I'm talking about it without VR. It's something I never knew I wanted until I had it in my hands. You know, that's how much I love Wipeout. I've been playing them since like the PSP, and then I have the Vita game, and I used to play Wipeout HD on PlayStation 3. And then when the Omega Collection came out, I was so happy that I could play Wipeout HD again with the Fury stuff and then the Vita game attached to it. There was just a lot of cool PS4 Wipeout content that I've always wanted. And then they came out with this VR update and I just lost my mind. The next best thing about driving cool cars is to actually be in the car and drive it yourself in VR. And the best thing beyond that is to take awesome futuristic floating cars and drive them yourself in VR. Now this is pod racing. I was speechless playing this, man. It's such a dream come true for me. And I know that there are other virtual reality racing games out there. You know, you got Gran Turismo, which is pretty good too. Even though that one is just like a small little mode, it's not even the whole game. And then you got Dirt Rally, and you have Trackmania, and all of these other games that do VR racing pretty decently. But gosh, man, I am the happiest with Wipeout Omega Collection. You do racing in these amazing, visually stunning environments with futuristic floating cars, and you can choose your own little car, and like the visuals of it are super awesome, and you can see inside, you know, of the little interior for the car. And even if you don't want to be driving as if you're actually inside the car, you can change your camera angle so you can play it like it's a normal flat screen game, but it's in VR. You can turn around and see where you're going. You have a better grip of, you know, the speed of it and stuff. Oh, and then you have those, you know, zone levels where it's all super colorful and awesome, and you can shoot your weapons, and oh my god, I love this game so much. This is the perfect example of a game that I already adored before, but then I just went to VR and I've never gone back. Seriously, as soon as that VR update came out, I have not played a Wipeout on a normal screen ever since. It has always been in VR because it just feels amazing to do so. Now, I am gonna cheat a little bit on this list. I'm gonna add a new thing in here, like a 9.5 entry or something like that, because there is another racing game out there on Steam that was made by a bunch of like hardcore Wipeout fans that also has VR support that is also really good. It's called Ballistic NG. And it kind of has that retro feel to it, harkening back to the older PlayStation 1 Wipeout games. They got their own cars, their own stages and challenges and all that stuff. If you've played Wipeout before and then you play Ballistic NG, you'll see that it is practically identical. But this one is also special because the whole game is also playable in virtual reality, and it plays pretty awesome. It's about as good as regular Wipeout, honestly. So combine those two games and you have a VR futuristic racing wonderland. I need to go change my pants now because just thinking about it makes me want us to stop recording and play that now. And now the last game that I want to talk about, game number 10, is No Man's Sky. The game that everybody used to hate, but now people, including myself, love it. One of the biggest comebacks ever in all of gaming. With all of their awesome free updates for No Man's Sky, VR was a no-brainer. So many people asked for this even before the game launched, and I asked for it. I had dreams, just like Minecraft. I had literal fucking dreams of me playing No Man's Sky in virtual reality, being on the spaceship itself, exploring planets through my own eyes, and we finally have it. It's everything I wanted and more, mostly because of all of those updates, where now you can be on a submarine and you can control a giant robot, you can see all of these enormous structures and fight things and have space battles and be in your freighter and do hyperspace and all of these different things. It is glorious. It was already fun enough just scanning and shooting rocks, but now it's a totally different thing where you can scan and shoot rocks in VR. Very similar to playing Minecraft in VR, where yeah, you can use the motion controllers to use your gun and your scanner and flying the ship and all that stuff. It has its moments. It can be fun for a couple of times, but if you really want to play this in the long term and have long sessions of you playing this in VR, then I don't recommend the motion controllers. They're a little finicky and they're not the best. So I would recommend just using a regular controller, whether that's a DualShock 4 or an Xbox controller or what have you. That's probably going to be so much better just for comfort alone. But yeah, the motion controllers are no joke either. They work fairly well too. But it definitely takes a lot of getting used to, I'll say that, especially when flying your ship. I think the real beauty of playing this in VR is in creative mode, because in creative mode, there's no limits. You can just build and do and have whatever you want. So if you want to give yourself a good trial run for VR, then just play in creative mode first, just so that you can see everything that you can do. And yeah, it is just wonderful. This is one of those games where I do admit I do play half of it on a regular screen and half of it in VR, just because, you know, I have these long sessions of me playing this. So eventually my eyes do get a little tired and I just play it on a regular television screen. But hey, dude, it is awesome. The very first time that you get on your ship and you fly off into space in VR, there is nothing like it, man. And the game is still getting even better with all of these new updates that constantly keep coming out. And of course, VR keeps getting improvements as well. So I simply I love it now, and I can't wait for it to be even better in the future. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Those are 10 games that I think are so much better in VR than they are on a flat screen TV. Now, that doesn't mean that you guys are not allowed to play it on a normal TV anymore. That doesn't mean that, you know, the previous versions suck or anything like that. They most certainly don't suck. They're already great games as they are. But, you know, for me, who is a really big VR enthusiast, and now that I got the Oculus Quest 2 and I figured out how to plug it into the computer and stuff, I can use all of my Steam games and whatever. Yeah, and I still have my PlayStation VR, so I can play a bunch of games on there too. It's just awesome. Right now, it's a really great time to be a virtual reality fan because we're sort of getting out of that initial phase of like, there really aren't a whole lot of games. A lot of it is like proof of concept and really short and stuff and too expensive. Well, now you have stuff like the Oculus Quest that costs $300. You have all of these games that are coming out, you know, Skyrim and Borderlands and all of these big, massive games that will give you a lot of value for VR. Not only that, but the controllers, you know, with sticks and buttons and motion stuff, all of that is improving all of the time. And that's not even factoring in all the competition that wants to make better headsets that are more accessible and more advanced and all that stuff. So, I mean, yeah, I think the library of games has piled up enough that I think I can recommend people getting into it now. And the reason for why I made this list is so that I can sort of appeal to people's comfort zones a little bit, right? Sometimes it might not be super safe, right, to go into this brand new IP or something that's just a proof of concept. Well, why not a game that you already know is awesome, but relive it all over again through a different perspective, right? And so, yeah, all of these games I love normally and I love in VR as well, so I highly recommend that you try all of these out. But anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. And yeah, keep enjoying virtual reality. I know I am, because I have a ton of video games that I can enjoy with this now. Oh yeah, and hentai. Lots of hentai. Dude, you have no idea. VR porn is so amazing.